Money, money, money. It's all around us, like the air we breathe. Money puts food on the table. Money gets us from A to B. Money powers our lives. Have you ever felt like the whole world revolves around money? Do you keep seeing and hearing things that tell you it doesn't? The truth is, it controls even more of your life than you think.
In this life, one thing counts: in the bank, large amounts.
As a society, we tend to believe in the sanity of money, its value as paper notes, coins, and even digital numbers. But is everything we have been told about money a lie? Let me ask you a question. Do you actually know what money is?
I'm talking about this.
Not just the physical form, but where it came from, how it began, why we even use money. After all, on the surface, money is just a piece of stamped metal, or a piece of paper, or ones and zeros on a distant server. Nothing else. Yet, we are obsessed with it.
Money.
When we see it, our eyes can't look away from it. Our whole lives revolve around getting more of it. The physical aspect itself contains no material value, yet it is the difference between nothing and everything. So why is it so important and prevalent in our lives? Would you even believe me if I told you money isn't as real as you think? With that being said, I'm going to tell you about the dark side of money. How it's used as a means of power and control, and how it forms the very fabric of our society. To do that, and understand how money got to the point it is at today, we need to go back in time. A time before any concept of money or currency even existed, where the earliest human civilizations and tribes would often trade with each other to provide goods. Just as today, some groups have or can produce what others do not have, but need, so trading helps benefit each other. Initially, this was in the form of direct swaps. You give me cows, I'll give you grains, but it starts to get a bit more complex when trading with multiple groups and in large quantities. That's where currency came in to speed up and simplify the trading process. The earliest forms of currency were rare shells, stones, and nuggets of precious metals, which would be traded fairly reliably. An idea of money as a concept was forming, but it was only just getting started. Whatever was used, they had one thing in common: a generally shared and recognizable value, a value that persisted across groups. So at this point, money still had some inherent value. There was a problem, a flaw. It was hard to verify that value with consistent reliability. A flaw that has been suggested as one of the reasons for the total societal collapse in the Bronze Age, almost 3,000 years ago. You see, when these nuggets and metals were traded, they were often electrum, a mix of gold and silver. This made it hard to determine their true value. It wasn't until the 6th century BCE onwards, when metallurgy was advanced enough to create metal of real purity, that the first reliable coins were minted in the Kingdom of Lydia in modern-day Turkey. This breakthrough revolutionized currency. Minted coins of copper, silver, and gold became more and more prevalent as currency was standardized. Coins were stamped with faces of kings and emperors to verify their authenticity. But money's dark side would come to fore once more. It would become a tool of power and means of control. It began with the first form of banknotes, as it became cumbersome and dangerous to transport large quantities of metal coins for trade. IOU receipts were used to represent the value held elsewhere. They made it much easier and more convenient to trade large sums of money, and were usually backed up by the stamps and signatures of royalty. These were the strong, solid pillars that currency depended on. Inherently, these IOU receipts took on the value that precious metals had. You could now, in theory, trade with notes and never have to touch a coin again. The concept of these receipts being backed up by actual value would form the foundation of the gold standard centuries later. Eventually, IOU receipts turned into the banknotes we are familiar with today. But even though each banknote was supposed to be backed up with actual material value held by the institutions which issued them, it didn't stop those in charge trying to exploit this form of currency. Additional notes were printed without the backing in order to fund military campaigns and expansionist policies. Whilst it allowed for quick growth, it also threatened the integrity of the currency. Fast forward to the modern day and the world runs on debt. The IOU receipts concept became the currency itself, as the gold standard was replaced with floating fiat currencies. Most notably in 1971, when the US broke away from the gold standard under President Nixon.
I'm saying that when the president does it, that means it's not illegal.
Banknotes essentially became feedback loops of value. The strong pillars that had once existed were now entirely hollow, a facade and an illusion of what once was. Now, centralized banks print money at will. Quantitative easing is the norm, and sovereign debt piles higher and higher. Everything is held together on the thin glue of the past, and it's constant battle every day for governments and banks to keep the system intact.
So urgently, in fact, probably should have been addressed weeks ago, but that is spilt milk under the bridge. So, why doesn't somebody tell me what they think is going on here?
And just as in the past, money is a means of control and power. Monetary decisions at the top decides the fate of millions. It determines the course of countries. It influences the movement of people and affects the jobs and livelihoods of the entire population.
How much are we talking about?
125 billion.
Quantitative easing helps drive inflation. Interest rates can change your monthly repayments in an instant. At this point, money isn't even printed. It's simply created as numbers on a server. It's for these reasons that digital, decentralized currencies, cryptocurrencies, have exploded in popularity in recent years to try and break away from the centrally controlled currencies of countries. However, they all still run on the fundamental principle of inherent value that traces way back to those gold ingots. With crypto, it's blockchain, processes and proofs that authenticate their value. So, is it all a lie? A fraud? Whatever currency we use, it only works because of trust. Should we stop using them altogether? What would happen if we did? It seems like a grand idea. Strip away the smoke and mirrors and directly trade goods and services we need. Everyone goes back to bartering, there's no more cash and everything is simplified, right? Unfortunately, the world is far more complex and connected than it's ever been. If we stop using money, trade would grind to a slow pace. You'd have to carry around all goods and some proof of services in order to buy your morning coffee and that birthday gift. Purchases would become inconvenient and values would be less consistent to authenticate and measure. Look, simply put, society would cease to function at the speed it does today. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, it's certainly up for debate. But the truth is, money is a necessary evil. Even with its flaws, it allows our complex society to function more efficiently. It allows us to trade with ease, to share, to buy, and to sell. It makes it easier to compare costs and fund projects. It allows us to trade between villages, towns, cities, countries, and across continents. On top of that, it provides security and solidity to livelihoods. It's traceable and measurable. You can work out at one glance how much you have and what it gets you. Money is simply a language that everyone understands and that everyone speaks. If you want something, money can get you it with ease, if you can afford it. Look, at the end of the day, it all comes down to trust. Trust and reliability that we can give things value, even when that value seems strange and dark and even unexplained. We need it. After all, value is what you make it. It's why John Lennon's tooth sold for thousands of dollars, why art sells for millions, and why Elon Musk paid $44 billion for Twitter, despite the fact it failed to make profit more years than not. So how did these bankers take these inherent values to a whole nother level and amass vast sums of wealth never held before by a single person? Next time we take a look at the Rothschilds, the first modern bankers.